The Vanishing of Flight MH370. March 8, 2014. It was just another quiet night at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a Boeing 777, sat at its gate, preparing for a routine red-eye flight to Beijing. The aircraft, gleaming under the airport floodlights, exuded the reassuring solidity of modern aviation. Boarding proceeded smoothly as 227 passengers took their seats, joined by 12 crew members. They were from 14 different countries, their lives diverse and disconnected, yet now tethered to a shared destiny. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, 53, was already in the cockpit, performing pre-flight checks. A seasoned veteran with over 18,000 hours of flying experience, Zahari was a mentor figure within Malaysia Airlines, respected for his calm demeanor and mastery of the Boeing 777. Seated next to him was First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid, a 27-year-old with a promising future. This was one of his last training flights before full certification on the 777, and he was eager to prove his mettle. At 12:41 a.m., MH370 lifted off smoothly into the night sky, heading northeast over the South China Sea. For the first 38 minutes, everything was routine. The aircraft climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, and the pilots communicated with air traffic controllers as expected. At 1:19 a.m., as MH370 approached the edge of Malaysian airspace, Zahari's voice calmly acknowledged a handover to Vietnam's Ho Chi Minh Control. "Good night, Malaysian 370. It was the last confirmed communication from the flight. 2 minutes later, MH370 vanished from civilian radar. In that brief window, it slipped into the shadows, leaving behind an enduring enigma. Chapter 1. The Dawn of Uncertainty. In Beijing, dawn broke with mounting concern. Families and loved ones of MH370's passengers had gathered at Beijing Capital International Airport, expecting to welcome them at 6:30 a.m. As the minutes ticked past, anxiety rippled through the crowd. Airport officials provided little information, urging patience. By 7:30 a.m., Malaysia Airlines issued a statement confirming the flight was overdue. Shortly afterward, an emergency was declared. The initial hours were filled with a tense hope that the plane had experienced a minor technical issue and might have landed at an alternate airport. But with no communication from the cockpit and no distress signals received, hope began to wane. The airline's operations center scrambled to piece together the flight's final moments. Civilian radar had tracked MH370 across the South China Sea, but suddenly, its transponder signal disappeared. This was highly unusual. A transponder doesn't simply fail, it must be turned off, either manually or as the result of catastrophic failure. As the hours dragged on, it became clear that MH370 wasn't simply late. It was missing. Chapter 2. The First Search. By mid-morning on March 8th, search and rescue operations were in full swing. Initial efforts focused on the South China Sea, near the point where MH370 had last been detected by civilian radar. Dozens of ships and aircraft from multiple countries, including Malaysia, Vietnam, and China, scoured the area. But the search revealed nothing. No debris, no oil slick, no sign of the Boeing 777. The ocean stretched endlessly, an unbroken expanse of water and sky. Then, on March 9th, a new piece of information shifted the focus dramatically. Malaysia's military radar had picked up an unidentified aircraft around the time MH370 disappeared from civilian radar. This mysterious plane had deviated sharply from its scheduled route, turning westward over the Malaysian peninsula and flying into the Straits of Malacca. It was only later confirmed that this unidentified aircraft was, in fact, MH370. The implications were staggering. This wasn't a simple case of technical failure. The aircraft's drastic course change suggested deliberate action. Someone in the cockpit was controlling the plane. But why? And where was it headed? Chapter 3. The Ocean's Secret. Attention turned to the vast Indian Ocean, one of the most remote and inhospitable places on Earth. Inmarsat, a British satellite company, provided a crucial breakthrough. Although MH370's main communication systems were disabled, the plane had continued to ping Inmarsat's satellite every hour. These pings didn't include specific location data, but allowed analysts to determine that MH370 had followed one of two possible flight paths: a northern arc stretching toward Central Asia, or a southern arc plunging into the Indian Ocean. Further analysis narrowed the focus to the southern arc. The aircraft had likely flown for another 6 hours after losing radar contact, exhausting its fuel over the southern reaches of the Indian Ocean. Search efforts moved to this remote expanse, over 2,000 kilometers west of Perth, Australia. The area was immense, an unforgiving wilderness of deep trenches, underwater mountains, and ocean currents strong enough to sweep wreckage thousands of kilometers away. For months, ships equipped with sophisticated sonar systems combed the ocean floor, mapping terrain that had never before been explored. Chapter 4. Lives in the Cockpit. As the search pressed on, the investigation turned to the people who had been at the helm of MH370. Every detail of Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah's life came under scrutiny. Zahari was a highly experienced pilot, known for his professionalism and meticulous approach to flying. However, his personal life was less stable. In the months leading up to the flight, his marriage was reportedly strained. His family and friends described him as increasingly withdrawn. Particularly alarming was Zahari's home flight simulator. Among its saved flight paths was a route remarkably similar to MH370's final trajectory, leading deep into the Indian Ocean. Investigators debated whether this was evidence of premeditation or merely a coincidence, the work of a pilot fascinated by every possible flight scenario. Fariq Abdul Hamid, by contrast, was at the dawn of his career. He was young, personable, and had aspirations of becoming a captain. Yet, his previous lapses in protocol, including allowing passengers into the cockpit, raised questions about his judgment. Could someone like Fariq, still in training, have acted alone to redirect the flight? Unlikely, but investigators couldn't rule out any possibility. No direct evidence pointed to either man definitively hijacking their own aircraft, but the deliberate actions taken to disable the transponder and alter the course narrowed the suspects to someone on the flight deck. Chapter 5. Theories of the Abyss. The mystery of MH370 spurred countless theories. Some were grounded in logic, others veered into the realm of the fantastical. The catastrophic failure theory. One of the earliest theories suggested a catastrophic failure. Perhaps a fire or electrical malfunction had caused the crew to lose control of the aircraft. Hypoxia, or a sudden loss of cabin pressure, might have incapacitated everyone aboard, leaving the plane on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. But this didn't explain the deliberate course changes or the disabling of the transponder. The hijacking theory. Could MH370 have been hijacked? If so, by whom? 2 Iranian passengers had boarded the flight using stolen passports, initially raising suspicions. However, Interpol determined they were likely asylum seekers, not terrorists. The lack of a ransom note or claim of responsibility further weakened this theory. Pilot suicide. The pilot suicide theory gained traction as more details about Zahari emerged. Some experts suggested that he had orchestrated the disappearance as a calculated act, ensuring MH370 would vanish in one of the most remote parts of the world. However, Zahari's family and friends vehemently denied he was capable of such an act. No clear motive was ever established. Military involvement and cover-up. Another theory speculated that MH370 was shot down, either accidentally or deliberately, by a military force. Proponents pointed to the route over the Straits of Malacca, close to military zones. However, no government admitted to such an action, and there was no supporting evidence. Extraterrestrial or paranormal explanations. For some, the lack of physical evidence pointed to the bizarre: alien abductions, advanced weaponry, or even electromagnetic anomalies. While these theories captured public imagination, they lacked any factual basis. Chapter 6. Fragments of Truth. In July 2015, a breakthrough came. A piece of aircraft debris, later identified as a flaperon from a Boeing 777, washed ashore on Reunion Island. It was the first tangible evidence of MH370's fate. Over the next few years, more fragments surfaced along the coasts of Africa and nearby islands. Pieces of the wing, interior panels, and even personal items. These fragments confirmed what satellite data had suggested. MH370 had ended in the southern Indian Ocean, but they offered few clues about the final moments. Critical components, such as the flight data recorder or cockpit voice recorder, remained hidden in the ocean's depths. Chapter 7. The Search and Its Legacy. Despite the massive international search efforts, the main wreckage was never found. In 2018, a private company, Ocean Infinity, undertook a high-tech search using advanced autonomous underwater vehicles. They covered vast swaths of the ocean floor, but like earlier missions, they came up empty-handed. For the families of the passengers, the lack of answers was devastating. Vigils and memorials were held annually, keeping the memory of MH370 alive. But as the years passed, the world moved on, leaving many families feeling forgotten and abandoned. MH370 also forced aviation authorities to rethink flight tracking. New systems, including real-time satellite monitoring, were introduced to ensure no aircraft could vanish so completely again. Epilogue. The mystery endures. The story of MH370 remains an unfinished chapter in the annals of aviation. It is a tale of unanswered questions, of families searching for closure, and of a plane that disappeared into the vast, unyielding ocean. Even as new technologies and discoveries emerge, the fate of MH370 stands as a haunting reminder of how much we still do not know about our world.